On yesterday's spoiler roundup, everyone was asking, where's the Forestcraft cards? Where's the Portalcraft cards? Today, we've got 6 new cards from the upcoming Shadowverse Worlds Beyond expansion, including our first Forestcraft Legendary spoiler and our second Swordcraft one as well. Let's go ahead and dig on into the juicy details, shall we? Our first Forestcraft legendary is Tatana, the Winged Queen, a 4 play point 2/2, who on fanfare summons you a fairy as well as gives you her crest. And this crest hangs around forever and says at the start of your turn, add a fairy to your hand. She also has the evolve effect, select an enemy follower on the field and transform it into a fairy. So Titania is kind of a template that we've seen be playable in other cards in the first expansion with a little bit of forest flavored upside. So evolving and turning something into a fairy in tandem with her giving you a fairy on her fanfare trigger means that you can essentially burn an evolution to kill something on the opponent's side of the board, assuming there's not a ward card standing in your way. It also then leaves behind that 4/4 body that can go ahead and rush attack something else that's smaller on the board, and then her crest hangs out and gives you sustained value over the course of the game, generating you an additional fairy every single turn. While I think I would be a little surprised if this card was something that wanted to be a 3 of inside of Forestcraft decks, as someone who's played that archetype a ton, I think these controlling cards that not only give you time to stabilize the board early, but the steady flow of fairies means that you'll have plenty of tools to finally set up that big roach combo turn, means I expect that this card will be very serviceable and played in some quantity in that primary Forestcraft deck we have right now. Garden's Guidance is a gold rarity Forestcraft card that is unassumingly incredibly powerful, I would wager. This is a 2 play point card that says draw a card, and then if this card is fused, you get 2 cards instead of that 1. And then you can fuse this with any Forestcraft cards in your hand. Fuse is the mechanic that the Portalcraft class used in our first set to combine gears into bigger things. And in this case, your Forestcraft cards aren't building into a giant mech, but more importantly, what they're doing is they're clearing out space in your hand. One of the resources you have to manage while playing the Forestcraft Roach combo deck to perfection is making sure you're not overdrawing and burning valuable cards that you're looking for, being at 9 cards when you start your turn and missing a Roach draw or a Staff draw or something like a Baby Bunkle is often the difference between winning and losing the game. Garden's Guidance means that at any point you can fuse any non-neutral cards in your hand into this one, allowing you to manage your hand size and making sure that you're never going to be overdrawing unless you make a mistake. And then in the games where your hand size is not problematic, you can spend this to draw a singular card, or if you fused even one extra card into it that you didn't need, you can draw 2, meaning that in addition to managing your hand size as you build up to your combo, this card can also help you churn through your deck to find your combo pieces that much more consistently. Our second legendary card spoiled today is Urus, the Levin Transcender, and this card seems obnoxiously powerful for Swordcraft. This is an 8 play point 5/7 whose fanfare summons 2 enemy knights on your opponent's side of the field, but his text says whenever an enemy follower enters the field until the end of your opponent's next turn, give it the following effect. It can't attack, and it deals 1 damage to the enemy leader and restores 1 defense to your leader. This effect is so obnoxiously controlling and difficult to deal with without a very specific subset of tools. The typical play pattern in Shadowverse is you play cards and wipe your opponent's board, they play cards and wipe your board, and you kind of go back and forth until someone's left standing with a resource and that resource finally takes over the game. Urus means that your opponent is going to have something like Divine Thunder or some other spell-based way to take this card off the field, because they're not going to be able to play out cards and rush them in to attack it, because when they enter, they're going to have to sit on the field for an entire turn cycle. He also buffers your life total a little bit while hammering your opponent with the chip shots and healing that are happening every time he comes in. This card is an incredibly powerful answer to existing metagame staples we have, like Kuon and Orcus and others that rely on generating a big board right away when they come down. This is the type of effect that, if it's remotely playable, and I would wager it is going to warp the types of cards most decks are going to be forced to play if they want to have a competitive shot of beating it in any games that they play into it. Next up, we have a gold Swordcraft follower, Prim the Holidaying Princess. This is a 2 playpoint 1/1 whose fanfare adds a Nonja the Silent Maid to your hand. She is ambush, meaning she can't be attacked or targeted by opposing spells until she attacks, and then her super evolve effect gives all other allied followers on the field +1/+1. Nanja is also a 2 playpoint card that starts off as a 2/2 with ward, but has fanfare. If there's an allied Prim in play, she gains 1/1 and Bane. This card has a lot of moving parts and a lot of numbers in a lot of places. The first thing that comes to mind for me is that, in a way, if we squint, this is a 4 playpoint card that, if we spend an evolution giving the Holidaying Princess Rush in tandem with her Bane, means that she can go ahead and kill something on the opponent's side of the board right away. The fact that this card has ward also means that it stabilizes your life total a little bit, and then Prim's super evolve ability to top it all off can represent a little bit of burst damage on the board. You have the ambush effect, meaning it gets to hang out until the following turn most of the time, and then you could super evolve it, smack their face for 4, and then also power up everything else you have on the board. This one feels like it could go either way, but I would wager the flexibility on this card likely makes it a worthwhile 2 energy card to be playing. Next up, we have an interesting Earthright payoff for Runecraft, Pascale's Dance. This is a 2 playpoint spell that gives you an Earth Sigil when you play it, and then gives you a countdown 1 crest that says, at the end of your turn, draw a card, and then Earthright 10, double the attack and defense of all allied followers on the field. At the surface level, this effect seems like a little bit of a pie in the sky unless we get some type of big way to generate a lot of earth rate, while you occasionally would get up into the double digits with the existing card pool that we have. A lot of the time, an earth rate deck is expending those resources in a lot of way, and the 10 from this is going to be directly competing with things like the Earthright legendary card we talked about yesterday that, for 2 Earth Sigils, always revives itself. That's going to be quite a tax on that resource for you. All of that being said, the fact that this card draws a card means that the opportunity cost of including it in your deck is on the lower side. A card that replaces itself, even if it's at the end of your turn, means that it's going to help you kind of filter and cycle through your deck, and gaining an Earth Sigil from it is not meaningless either. This could be a card that you play as a couple of filler slots in your deck to largely generate an Earth Sigil and then draw a card, with the Earthright 10 being an upside that happens occasionally in your longer games, but I could also see a world where it's just not particularly relevant. Draconic Strike is a 6 playpoint Dragoncraft spell that says, choose a card in your hand and reduce its cost by 2. Deal 3 damage to all enemy followers. So there are 2 immediate use cases that jump out in my mind for this card. The first is that when you play this on 6 organically, it can reduce a 9 cost card down to 7, meaning you can play it on the following turn. And the other is, when you're going second in Dragoncraft, meaning you have those additional play points, you can use your additional play point to play this on turn 5, allowing you to play an 8 energy card on your turn 6, or you get that play point that regenerates again on that turn, so you could even play a 9 drop on your turn 6 after playing this on your turn 5. All of this in tandem with the fact that it goes ahead and stabilizes the board for you against most of the aggressive decks that are running you down, means that this could really be the tool to allow a ramping, controlling Dragoncraft deck to flourish, which is definitely an archetype that really struggled inside of our first expansion. As someone who's something of a Forestcraft main for Shadowverse Worlds Beyond First Expansion, I'm going to be absolutely jamming 3 copies of Garden's Guidance into my list to help me churn through the deck and manage my hand size a little bit. Titania Winged Queen looks like a solid pickup as well to help us control the board, and Draconic Strike makes me excited to try out essentially a brand new archetype that wasn't competitive before. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on today's spoilers down in the comments below. And if you missed yesterday's video, I'll link that in the video description where we saw 6 different legendary cards that were spoiled on the first day. This expansion is set to release on July 17th, and I'm looking forward to digging into a ton of different deck lists then. As always, I appreciate everybody that made it all the way to the end of the video, and I hope your next daily pack is an excellent one.